Fun Ideas Productions presents the Fun Ideas Podcast. Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and welcome to Fun Ideas Podcast number 204. The Fun Ideas Podcast is brought to you in part by Freaky Magazine. I contribute material to every issue, so give it a try.
Hey kids, have you read Freaky? The magazine of weird humor for freaks like you. Freaky Magazine is a way-out collection of weirdo comics, kooky gags, photo funnies, social satire, and surreal collage. 52 pages of insanity in the tradition of magazines of yore like Cracked, Plop, and Zap. Special offer for Fun Ideas listeners, get a free sample copy in the mail, made of smelly newsprint and smudgy ink the old-fashioned way. Just message your mailing address to theslowpoisoner@gmail.com. That's theslowpoisoner@gmail.com while supplies last.
On sale now is Mark Arnold's latest book called Pac-Man, the first animated show based upon a video game. This book tells the story of Pac-Man phenomenon and goes through the entire history of the Hanna-Barbera Animation Studios, the history of the video games, pre-Pac-Man, the history of Pac-Man, the character, the video game, the spin-offs, the merchandise, and the animated TV series. Each and every episode of the classic 1980 series is covered and examined. Plus, Mark Arnold covers how Pac-Man has been honored on various anniversaries, including the 40th anniversary in 2021. A fun read for casual and hardcore Pac-Man and video game fans alike, featuring mini character model sheets and other images. Available online through Bear Manor Media, Amazon, and Barnes & Noble. Get your copy today.
Friends, have you tried Lee's Comics? Lee's Comics is better than the leading comic book store. Wait a minute. Lee's Comics is the leading comic book store. Based on arbitrary standards set by Lee Hester himself.
Lee's Comics was named as one of the 21 best online dealers by popoptique.com. To shop the Lee's Comics eBay store, go to eBay and search for Lee's Comics Inc. That's LEESCOMICSINC, period. Don't forget the period. Mention the Fun Ideas Podcast when you order, and you'll receive a free bonus gift. Stars of Walt Disney Productions is my latest book, out now. I just turned in the manuscript for Not Just Happy Together, the Turtles A to Z from AM radio to Zappa. It's a book I've been co-writing with Charles Rosenay. I'm doing the final edits and photo selection of my Mad book, and that will be turned in next. I'm also working on my TV Cartoons That Time Forgot book, plus articles on Nightmare, the Galloping Ghost, and Harvey Superheroes. On today's show, we have an actress who appeared in such movies as Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte, Three on a Couch, and The Vanishing Point, plus TV's Batman. She is perhaps best known for her numerous appearances on TV's The Monkees. Here she is, Valerie Kairys Venet. Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and it's another episode of Fun Ideas Podcast. And on today's episode, we have Valerie Kairys Venet. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
So, I didn't want to reveal this until after we started. In my research today to learn a little bit more about you, so I wasn't just like, oh, were you on the Monkees?
Right.
I was like researching and looking around and everything, and I found an interview that you did a few years ago with Ghosty, the DJ. And I said, I better listen to that because I didn't want to repeat anything that he asked. So,
you're going to have to repeat things.
yeah, but I will ask a few things, because actually what it has helped me do is I want to elaborate on a couple things that he touched on, and I go, well, I want to know more about that. So anyway, hopefully you'll be able to do that. So
I hope so.
So anyway, in listening to his show, I found out a little bit about your background, that like you were born in Germany and things like that. I mean, what was it like there? I mean, it's like, you said you had some memories of it back then. So, I mean, it's like, what was it like in post-war Germany?
Well, I was born in April 1945. Now they know. So the war was over in May 1945, but that doesn't mean that, when it ends, everything is hunky-dory. But it's my parents, I think, that suffered more than myself. And I had two brothers, and my family is Lithuanian, and they were running from Lithuania from Joseph Stalin. And because, I don't know if you know, but if you look at history, Joseph Stalin killed 20 million people in World War II.
Not a nice guy.
Not a nice guy, though. Yeah. And my poor grandmother that didn't want to come with my parents, she ended up in a Siberian concentration camp.
Ooh.
So, nothing was pleasant during that war. It was a horrible, horrible time for everyone, especially our Jewish brothers and sisters, of course. And, anybody that from the Baltic states that, Russia has oppressed for, I think, probably about 1,000 years. And so meaning the governments. No, I don't mean the people.
Yeah.
So that was how I ended up in Hitler's Germany.
Wow.
And that's where I was born. And so it was, but, I was just a little kid when I was, 3 years old. I think I remember back to 3 years old. I remember rabbit cages. We lived in barracks, and of course the rabbit cages were for food, not pets.
Right.
And I remember falling into a pit. I think I went after a baby chicken, and I fell into a pit. I followed my brothers around. I remember climbing through barbed wire, following them. And they, for a favorite pastime, they were digging up ammunition. So it's a good thing that we didn't, explode and kill each other, or, So, so then we're one of the lucky families that were chosen to come to America, and we got on a naval freighter, and they separated us. We were in the hull of a naval freighter. And I remember when they let us up on deck, I remember seeing the Statue of Liberty. But, okay, there she is. The poodle is back. This is a very good thing. All right, Susie. She's blind, though. I'm going to reach for her. But when they're 17, you really have to do what they need to do.
Right.
And I thought I had everything all together, of course, best laid plans. And so we came to America. I remember seeing the Statue of Liberty. I ended up in the hospital. I was sick. My mother said it was measles, but her language skills were not good, so I don't know what it was, but I was sick. And we ended up in Lowell, Massachusetts. We stayed there for 2 years. My parents worked in parachute factories,
Wow.
And then in 1952, we had a sponsor, and they gave my parents jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm out of breath chasing the dog.
That's okay.
Anyway, we ended up coming to California.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I always say I was born in Germany, but I was raised in Hollywood.
Right.
Because I was. And so that's the beginning of my life.
It's just interesting because it didn't even occur to me until I was listening to Ghosty's show. It's like, I just figured, and I think he even thought that too. It's like, oh, you're a California girl born and bred. And it's like, nope. And then you think, maybe it was another state. And it's like, nope. Another country. Wow.
Another country, and English is my second language.
Wow. Now, did your parents try to get out here sooner, or was it just the time you were able to do it? They were able to do it, or did you ever discuss that?
After the war, they came with nothing.
Yeah.
Probably the shirts on their back. And we had a sponsor in Lowell, Massachusetts, that had the jobs in the parachute factories. Because, it was still very soon after the war.
Right.
Only 5 years after the war. So they, I guess they were... Lowell, from what I understand, is a factory city. Mm-hmm. There's lots of factories. So I guess they saved up some money and bought a car, and we headed out west.
Now, when you're out in California, did they do the same thing, parachutes, or was it something different by that point?
No, they, started at the bottom, of course. And my father, I call him the original hippie, as he played the guitar. He drove race cars. Somehow or other, he got into that. And somehow or other, he got into working for the studios. Because I remember him taking me to KTLA on Sunset Boulevard.
Right.
Are you familiar with Los Angeles?
Yeah, I lived down there for 3 years when I was age 6 to 9, and so I'm very I'm from the San Francisco area, but I know LA stuff very well.
So you remember that tower that said KTLA Channel 5, right? Well, they were filming something, and I think that was something that was very intriguing to me, because they were. I don't remember what show it was, but I think it was something about firemen, and this is the 50s,
right?
So, but anyway, we went on from there. So,
and what I think you were saying on that show that your parents had some sort of, if not acting abilities, some sort of performing abilities or some skills or something that, led you to, wanting to be an actress. Is that correct?
Sort of. My mother sang in the church choir along with her brother, and they had, good voices, so they were singers. And my father, I call him the original hippie. He was played the guitar. He sang, but different than, what my mother did. And he liked to paint. He was creative. He was, got involved in racing cars, loved cars. So, I think, I don't know how I think that doesn't every little girl want to be an actress?
Well, especially if you're in close proximity to TV station or a movie studio, it's it seems natural, so.
Yeah. Then, at our church, there was a lady that taught dancing, and I think I was a snowflake. Mm-hmm. I wasn't much of a ballerina, though. No, I was not. But I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. But, really little. So she put us in spots where we were just starting out. Mm-hmm. And the older I got, then there was school. I had to concentrate on that, and then there wasn't very much available in elementary school or junior high school in the creative arts.
Okay.
In those days. I'm talking the 50s. So then I think I got a job. It was a part-time job, an after-school thing for a company called Rips Opticians. And they examined your eyes, and we sold glasses. And that's where the movies came in.
Mm-hmm. Now this story I like, so I'll have you repeat it. That you didn't try to go into acting; it came to you. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Of course, watching television and being a little kid, I think it was always in the back of my mind, as much as it could be, as much as a little girl can imagine. But when I was older, when I was in high school, I got this job, and I was actually the receptionist, and I was modeling the glasses that they would sell. And so that was fun, to have glasses that were all different kinds of glasses I wore. And one of the opticians, and I'm going to say it again, I think it was a setup. One of the opticians brought in a young man to get glasses, and his name was Michael McLean. And he came up to my desk, and he said, "Have you ever thought about being in movies?" And I, of course, sat up, and my little ears perked up, and I'm sure my posture just, and I was typing, I remember, and I said, "Well, yes, of course, who wouldn't want to be in the movies?" And so I got to know him, and he was already an actor. I think he had his SAG card when he was an infant, when he was born.
Wow.
Because his father was the head of talent at 20th Century Fox, right under Zanuck.
Wow.
Zanuck's right arm. So that was the lucky break. But he was only a couple of years older than me, Michael. And so I dated him, and then he got a job as a casting director at 20th Century Fox. So he, got me into the movie industry, and that's how it all started.
So
and he's a wonderful man. I love him so much. He's no longer with us. Very sad. He died of brain cancer. And he was just the most wonderful person you'd ever want to meet in your whole life. Just a gem, So very much missed. And he kind of managed me, and because I remember I said, "Michael, I want to work on Von Ryan's Express." And he said, "No." And I said, "Why?" I said, I want to work with Frank Sinatra." And he said, "No." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because he'll eat you alive. That's why you're not working on it." See?
Now what year is this?
Sinatra, I guess.
What year is this? Are we talking about?
Well, it had to be like 1964.
Oh, okay.
I remember Peyton Place was on the lot. What else?
Let's see, what did Fox do? So
yeah,
it's like,
there was all of those.
Like I know all the Columbia stuff because of the Monkees and everything, and just like Screen Gems and everything. I was like, what was 20th Century Fox doing on TV?
Oh yeah.
I know there's theatrical films, that they were doing around that time, but yeah.
Lots of them. One of Michael's first films that he was like an assistant casting director was Sound of Music.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a big movie.
Right.
But there was also a lot of television going on.
Yeah. I know what was going on. There's a lot of Irwin Allen stuff going on, at least, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, that type of stuff.
That's right.
And then I think, there's a little show that you did appear on that was a 20th Century Fox show, is Batman. And
Batman
was that a similar thing where they just asked you, or did you audition for that, or how did that work for a show like that?
Yeah, Michael McLean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, he was kind of my manager, and he was kind of watching out for me. And also his father adored me, you know, and he was the head of talent. And he was the one that said, you know, he said, since she doesn't have any experience as an actress, why don't we start training her by letting her stand in for people? Because then you have to be glued to that camera, really glued.
Mm-hmm.
And in close proximity with the director, in close proximity with everybody. And then you learn the nuts and bolts of the motion picture industry. And I'm talking in, you know, those days.
Right.
They don't do that anymore. You know, the director is behind a curtain. You never meet him. I'm only talking about the small potatoes, which I am a small potato, you know. I am a potato, but I'm a small potato.
Now,
so, you know, the movie industry has changed.
Right, right, of course. Unfortunately, I don't think for the better, but, you know, hey.
True. I know everybody likes the action films. I remember once I was talking to one of my doctors, and he was a very young man, you know, and he said, you know, Valerie, he said, I can't sit through a movie unless it's an action movie. He said, I just can't do it. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Yeah. That's what the younger people are doing, you know, so it's very different.
I mean, I do like action films, but I like all types of films, too. I mean, I just became a film buff. You know, once home video came out and, you know, older films got to be released in pristine condition without commercials, I was, like, hooked. You know, I started watching everything, so that's what happened with me.
Right. I like that, too. I have what they call a Fire Stick. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a Roku. You know, I think there's Roku and Fire Stick. They're the same.
Yeah.
So you plug it into your TV, and I think I paid $40 for it. Mm-hmm. And you plug it into your TV, and then you can select whatever you want. You can get Hulu, you can get Netflix, or you can just type in what movie you want to see, and then you're invited to buy it or rent it.
Right. But it's amazing.
So I love it.
It's amazing, you know. It's like, you know, when I was a kid, and of course when you were a kid, you know, it's like movies. If you wanted to see them, you had to wait for them to come out in the theater again, you know. And if they happen to be on television, you know, they're all cut up and had commercials or something. So it's like, you know, it's just amazing how things have changed. So.
Things have really changed, and in those days we used film.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We didn't use video. A person that did use kind of a video thing was Jerry Lewis. Mm-hmm. And I think he was the first one. I forgot the name of it. It has a name.
Yeah.
The apparatus that he used. But, you know, he had to see what he did. He did everything.
Right.
He would direct the film. He would star in the film. Mm-hmm. He would produce the film. And he would, you know, be in the scene, and the cameraman, so then he needed to see what it was like, and it wasn't like today, digital. He had to take a look at it on that, whatever the machine was. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people will know exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And I should know what it was, but I don't.
Yeah, I know it was like a video television assist type thing or something like that, but I don't know the exact name of it. I should, I suppose, but
yes, you should, Mark.
But you know, I know we're going to jump around a bit because I do on this show anyway. But you know, since you're talking about Jerry Lewis, you know, it just seems well, let me say this about the video thing. It just seems like it should have been a natural thing once television kind of came into play, that, you know, you'd want to see what you just shot, but it seems weird that it took for years for that to become standard. You know, it's you know, that was just my statement about it, but
yeah. Yeah, the technology just wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find out the name of it, you will know more than I do about it.
Yeah.
That it was a clumsy thing, you know. It wasn't this little tiny camera that they have now. That, you know, it's just so different. Everything is so different now. Who am I?
Now, let me jump back to Batman, and then I'll go to Jerry Lewis again. I don't know where I'm going on all this, but during
See, you should call me more often.
I know.
I know.
Then I'll get. Then I'll know what to say next. Anyway, but during all this, was your training only like watching and being on the set and everything, or did you actually take any formal acting lessons at any point?
I did. You know, I've only studied with one coach,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a phenomenal person.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, actually, you probably know him or know of him, James Brolin.
Oh, yeah.
We grew up together. You know, Michael McLean, James Brolin, and my roommate, Cherie, we all grew up together. And Jim was an actor, too. Everybody was an actor.
Right.
But we had to have a job that actually gave us food on the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Jim's father had an apartment complex. I think it was in Orange County somewhere, and it was a brand new complex. There was a French quarter, there was a colonial quarter, there was a Polynesian quarter,
mm-hmm.
and there was I forget what the last one was, like a Creole kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they came furnished. And so all the furniture, though, was stored in a storage place. So what we did, the four of us, is when an apartment rented, whether it was colonial or French or whatever, mm-hmm. we would get the correct furniture. And we would move in all the furniture, like we were furniture movers. Isn't that something? But, you know, we got free place to stay, and we had each other, and we were all, you know, very, very, we were kids. You know, what can I say? We were kids. We were young. We were full of energy. We were hoping to be in the movie industry, and we were trying to get through every day, you know, and so we had a lot of fun doing that. What was my point? Oh, okay, so James Brolin, later on, after I did get into the movie industry and after we moved back to Los Angeles, all of us, and I said, you know, I really think that I think he had a series by that time called Marcus Welby. Yeah. And I asked him, he was studying with someone, and I said, do you think I should do anything like that? Do you think I should? And I'll never forget his encouraging words. Here's another person that's a saint. You know, James Brolin is truly a saint. Mm-hmm. He said, Valerie, he said, I think you should, and I think you'll do better than all of us. He was so sweet, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay. And so the acting coach's name was Robert Kairys. He's no longer with us. And I'll give you some of the names that studied with him. Robert Mitchum, the Supremes.
Wow.
Lucille Ball. We weren't in one room together. Even Mayor Yordi. Do you remember him?
I've heard of him.
Mayor Yordi. Yeah. You know, Humphrey Bogart. You know how he would get the message across to you just with his eyes. Mm-hmm. And that's what Robert said. He said, if you can't move that muscle, he said, start thinking it over. And it'll move over. He said but he was really, really a special. He said, I can teach you the tools, but he said, I can't teach you how to act. And he said, maybe if you get an Academy Award, maybe I'll congratulate you on the second one. That's the kind. He was very hard. He was very tough.
Wow.
He didn't put up with anything. So I had the privilege to work with that man. You know, I had the privilege to work with him. So I did have a little bit of training.
Okay.
And I don't think you can ever stop training.
Right. But,
Yeah,
you know, I didn't know if you were just learning on the spot or you actually went, you know, to someone else to get some help, you know, which you did.
I did. I did. But, you know, when you're, see, I was barely 18.
Yeah.
You know, when I started in the movie industry. And those young years, you're a sponge. No matter what you see, you're a sponge. Yeah. And here I was in the major motion picture industry working with the greats. Jerry Lewis, Janet Leigh, you know, Glennis Jones, James Stewart. I'm trying to think of, you know, people. You know, I'm almost 78 years old, so I have an excuse.
Well, I can throw some things out there because, you know, I now know some of the movies you were in.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah. So I, in other words, I would watch these people and I'd watch what are they doing. You know, I since I was privileged to stand in, of course, they didn't give us any credits then. Like, you know, when I worked with Betty Davis, they called it stunt work because I was working with firearms.
Yeah. Now, I've seen that movie before, Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte, which is the one we're talking about with Betty Davis. Yes. But it's been a while. Did you get any screen credit at all, or was it just, you know, because I know they didn't do credits the way they do nowadays, where the credits last for 10 minutes and list everybody and their dogs and everything. So it's like,
right. Yeah. No. I don't think they even listed stunt people for credits. They definitely didn't list stand-ins for credits. Now they do. Yeah. I'm glad they do because it is a very important job. Right. I don't think that people. It's kind of like an understudy for stage, but it's different. It's different for film. Right. You know. But I'm glad that, you know, there are more credits. I love to watch the credits. Yeah. And what I love about it now, if I watch the movie at home, which I can do, I can wind it back if I miss something in the credits, because there's a lot of credits, like you say. Yes. Yeah, so.
Now, when you were working on movies, we'll stick with that one for right now, the Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. Did you interact with all the different people, or was it mainly Betty Davis, or who did you associate with? Huh?
I told the story to David, right?
Ghosty, yeah.
Ghosty.
Yeah.
And it's an awfully cute story. Betty really took a liking to me. And yes, we did interact because, you know, now they have these great big trailers that the stars, you know, go to, and they've got like their own apartment on the lot. Then it wasn't like that. The most you had was a little bungalow on the set. But, you know, mainly people gathered around the coffee machine, just like in an office. So Joseph Cotton and Bruce Stern and I remember we sat around that little coffee table and drank coffee and ate donuts and just chit-chatted up a storm. And Betty, when she said, she would yell, "Everybody off the set, except Valerie." She was just delightful. You know, I'm so lucky that I got to meet her and Bruce Stern and Joseph Cotton. I was it was a gift to work with all of these people. I don't think I've ever met anybody that I didn't like in the motion picture industry. Not one.
Well, the one I want to ask you about on that movie, which you'll probably say, what? Victor Buono. Did you interact with him at all on that film, or no?
No.
Oh, okay.
He probably wasn't there.
Because I know he's in the film, but he might not have done scenes at the same time you were, so okay. All right.
Right.
But when you were doing all these stand-in scenes and just various movies and everything else, were you under contract, or was the contract era passed by that point?
Oh, no, there were definitely contract players.
Okay.
And no, I was not one of them.
Oh, okay. Did you aspire to be?
Definitely. Jim was a contract player at 20th Century Fox. James Brolin.
Right.
He was a contract player at Fox, but no, not me.
Okay.
I wasn't far enough along yet.
Okay. The only reason I asked that is because you did quite a few things at 20th Century Fox, and then you moved on to Columbia and did quite a few things there, so I thought maybe, just out of consistency of sticking at one studio, you didn't seem to jump around too much, at least in those days, so that's how
Well, I did work at Universal, too. I don't remember on what. Sheriff Lobo comes to me.
Well, if it was that show, that would have been many years later than what the time we're talking
years
about.
later, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying you never worked at all these other studios. You might have worked at all of them, for all I know.
I did. I worked at all of them. I worked at MGM. I worked, worked at MGM. I worked at Universal. I worked at Columbia. I worked at Paramount. I worked at, there's more.
There's Warner Brothers.
Sam Goldwyn.
Oh, yeah.
Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers,
and
too.
Did you ever work at Disney, of all places, or no?
Disney wasn't here yet, I don't think.
Well, no, they were
Were
there. Yeah, when you started, it was like the year Mary Poppins was coming out and things like that. But they were pretty much their own thing. Yeah.
I know. Disney Studios was a white building that I used to drive by when I was going to MGM.
Oh, okay.
So no, I did not work on that line.
Okay, yeah. Disney a lot of times is its own thing. I mean, they tended to have, because I'm working on a book. It's actually out now. Stars of Walt Disney Productions. Just as an aside, but I mean, the people that tended to be stars there were like ones that they kind of they were homegrown, as it were, or they'd be aging actors that had already had a long career, like in the 30s and 40s, and now they're doing things later on in their 60s and 70s, in the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. So, it was kind of unique that way. But anyway. So, my whole question about 20th Century Fox and everything, so, you like, and getting back to Batman, the only reason I'm asking about that, I'm a huge Adam West Batman fan. Of course, you're on a couple episodes. So, what was it like? What was like a working day like working on that show? Because it seems so bizarre compared to other stuff that was done before that. I mean, it even predates the Monkees, so it's like it just seems very modern, for lack of a better term. When it came out. So.
I thought it was at the same time.
Well, it was about a year before it debuted. You might have been on when the Monkees was on, but it debuted in January of '66. Monkees was like September. I'm just going by when the show debuted. But
okay.
But so it predated it, by almost a year. But
well, Julie was. You couldn't take your eyes off of her. Mm-hmm. She was that spectacular. And she was in trouble all the time, which I really liked.
Are we talking about Julie Newmar?
Yes.
Okay.
Meow.
Mm-hmm.
She was something else. She'd climb up on those rafters. I heard this is when I had a dressing room that was right on the set, inside the stage, little tiny bungalow. And I heard the director just screaming and screaming. And I thought he was screaming because I was a little bit late. And they really don't like that. Because then by the time you get your makeup, by the time you get your costume, and boy, those costumes, I don't know if you've seen Kitty's costume.
Oh, yeah.
It was very risque.
Yeah, very skin tight.
Yes. And there was no room for a wardrobe malfunction because you were totally covered.
Yeah.
Totally covered, you know. And, but I heard him screaming and I thought, oh, God, it's me that he's mad at. Everything revolves around me.
Right.
Just in case you don't know. So, anyway, it wasn't me because I peeked out the door and it was, he was looking up, way up into the heavens. We were indoors. And there was Julie, and she had climbed up. Have you ever been on a soundstage? They're huge.
Yeah.
And she had climbed up way up there, and she wouldn't come down. And he was screaming at her to come down, and she was up there hissing at him and swatting.
Wow.
At him like a cat.
Wow.
And she was just... oh my God, she was something to behold, really, what a gift to work with her. Do you know that she still refers to us as her kittens?
Wow, that's cool.
I have a friend that is very close to her, and she refers to us as her kittens.
Wow.
So, so every time I see her, I go, that's my mother. That's my mother cat. And she's... just wonderful and spectacular. My goodness, she's just absolutely spectacular. The way she moves, everything. Just nobody else exists when you're on the set with Julie Newmar,
And she was the main one you interacted with. Did you interact much with Adam or Bert? Or
Yes. They tried to do, they were always after my mother, so I didn't like them.
Ooh.
They had to be. I think I took Robin to the maze, and I tried to kill him with something, but it didn't work. He came too. But yes.
Well, I've read his biography before. I know, kind of the scandalous stuff they did, and things like that, to put it mildly. So, it was,
I don't know his biography, but and in our little circle on our show, we know, and I think that I tried to take Batman to the maze. As well, to be rid of him, but that didn't work. So, I don't know, maybe somebody will someday.
Now, those shows, what was the shooting schedule like? How quickly did you do an episode of that show? Were 2 episodes, and I don't remember.
Oh, okay. I don't know, 2, 3, 4 days, 5 days a week, something like that.
Okay, that sounds about average.
Something like that.
Okay.
I don't remember as much about Batman as I do about the Monkees.
Right.
And there are memory gaps there too.
Right. Which is where we're going next, of course, so we have to talk about the Monkees. So, unless you don't want to.
No, I love them. I adore them. Peter's birthday was just the other day, and
right.
Well, it was yesterday actually, but I made such a big mistake. on Saturday, I thought that it was Peter's birthday on Saturday, and I thought Valentine's Day was on Sunday.
Oh.
And I was completely wrong. So there I was wishing Peter a happy birthday, putting up pictures, and it wasn't his birthday. So yesterday was his birthday. So I was all mixed up. But it's okay. You know, people expect that of me. My acting coach, Robert, he told me that I reminded him of Carol Channing. And she was a very funny lady.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, I was, 19 when I was studying with Robert. So I was very, very young. He wasn't saying that I look like her. He wasn't saying there's something in my personality that he saw that I didn't see. He also said, and I don't know, he said that I was a cross between Sophia Loren and Carol Channing.
Wow.
If you can imagine.
That's actually a compliment.
That's what he saw. I didn't see it. I still don't see it.
Right.
But that's what he saw, you know. But I think he always thought that I was a comedian. I never thought that I was a comedian.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to be a comedian.
Yeah.
But
maybe you just thought you had comedic talent, but also beauty. So I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. If you match you up with Carol Channing and Sophia Loren, you know. So. You
just don't know, you know, what someone else sees.
Right.
And you know, he was certainly qualified to make, you know, to see something in a person and to bring it out. I don't know. He never had a chance to do that with me, though, because he was very expensive. He was very expensive. Right. But I was very lucky to, you know, work with him. And I, you know, I would still love to work. I don't think that actors ever retire. I think maybe the industry retires us.
Yeah,
but I don't feel retired. I would go back to work in a New York second. I have done a lot of student films over at USC. You know, so those are always good to work with because you're working with students, so you just can't go wrong. And it's fun, and you're working with a camera, and and you have a script, and you can do the best you can with it. You know, so that's wonderful to get those jobs. They don't pay anything, but they're fun to do, and it's sort of like studying.
Now, when you do these student films, do they know that your past history of being with the Monkees and Batman and things like that, or we just need an actress?
You know, some are so young that they have no idea.
Wow.
You know,
because I'd be like, let's get her. She was in the Monkees. Come on.
No, some of them do know.
Yeah. Okay.
And especially now, of course, I'm not doing anything now. I was over at USC the other day, and I went over to the film department and hung around and, you know, looked around. But I at this time, Mark, I have a 17-year-old dog that's losing her legs. Nobody can take care of her. She falls. Yeah. She, you know, so my life right now is dedicated to her. And so I could not possibly take on a student film right now.
Right. Well, there's plenty of time for that, I'm sure, in the future.
Hopefully.
So, on the Monkees, did you get the Monkees the same way as it seems like you got everything else? You were just led, or did you know about the Monkees audition, or how did it come about that they wanted to cast you? I think you said you were Davy's stand-in or something like that.
Can I give you what I think happened?
Sure.
Okay. Because I don't know if it's exactly what happened, but so, you know, in those days we had a phone at home. Mm-hmm. We didn't carry around a phone with us. Right. So I think that I was working on a Jerry Lewis film. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, on the Columbia lot. Mm-hmm. If I wasn't working on the Jerry Lewis film, I was probably working on I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched.
Okay. Well, those are all Columbia, so yeah.
Yeah. So I was in other words, I was on the lot all the time, 5 days a week. And so one day I came home, my roommate said that, you know, the studio had called and they wanted me to come to stage. I thought it was 7. I was corrected by Gary Strobel. He said it was stage 4. And so I went to stage 4. Whatever I was working on, I went to stage 4, I think on my lunch hour or thereabouts. And it was weird because the stage was dark, no one was there, and there was one little light, you know, like in the corner. And so I walked over there, and no one was there, you know, so I thought, well, this is funny. And then I heard footsteps, and it was Bert Schneider, you know, the creator of the Monkees. You know, he and Bob Rafelson created the Monkees. And he came over and we chatted, and he asked me all about myself, and I told him as much as I could, and then he asked me if I could travel, and I said yes. And then he said, would you mind standing in for a young man? And I said, no. I said, I don't care, you know, as long as I get my rent paid. So he hired me. And the odd thing was what I heard is no one had one-on-one interviews. They were all lots of people being interviewed being chosen at the same time. But why I was on a one-on-one with Bert, I don't know, except my best educated guess would be that he saw me on the lot. Yeah. Because I was all over that lot every day. Mm-hmm. And I was in the commissary. I was, going to get coffee. I was going to wardrobe. I was going to hair. I was going here, going there. So I was running around all over the lot. And I think that he probably saw me and probably asked around, and who is she, and, got me that way. Mm-hmm. And so he was very sweet, and he and Bob were new to Los Angeles. They were from New York, I think. Right. And they were not really familiar with Los Angeles. So I made friends with them first. And then, came time to shoot the pilot. We went to Coronado Island and did what we had to do over there. And then we waited around, but I was still on the lot every day. So I'd check in with them all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'd go over to Ray Burt and say, you know anything yet? No, we don't know. Is the pilot picked up, No. And so one day I walked over there, and everybody had long faces, like they were so sad. And I said, what's wrong? And Bob looked at me and said, no, it didn't get picked up. It's over. And I said, what? I said, no. You got to do something. It can't be over. It's a great show. It's going to, I went off. I don't know what exactly I said. Anyway, I left. I was so disappointed. And then I came back another day, and Bob said, I'm going to call you our lucky charm. Ah. The show is
So that must have been because of the part I know is he re-edited the pilot, and then they tested it again and it did much better when he did that. And I think he put Davies and Mike's screen tests in the show just to kind of round it out, so you knew who these people were instead of.
Well, I did. I did them because I took them places. I took them downtown LA, my old stomping ground. I took them to Chinatown. I took them, all over the place, and we were like buddies, and just because they were new and everything to the city.
Yeah.
So I kind of, did that with them. And, they weren't that much older than me. And really, basically, we were all just kids having a great time.
Yeah.
But I did say, no, you can't let it slide or something. Those were not my exact words, don't hold me to that. But I know I rebelled and said, no, you can't do this. It's gotta go. You gotta do something.
Yeah.
Threw a fit, basically.
Yeah.
And then it went, and he did. He called me his lucky charm. He said, you are our lucky charm. Mm-hmm. So that was very sweet, but nobody knows it or believes me.
Now you're listed as being on like about 14 episodes or something like that. But did you show up to the set even when you weren't needed? I mean, were you always involved with the show, or how'd that work?
No, I never visited. I was always there being paid.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people did visit, though. It was like the Friends set. Everybody wanted to come over and visit. Dennis Hopper was one of the visitors. Mm-hmm. He was there almost every day. After the show got started, that would be, I think, the second season. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the latter part of the first season. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. You have to. It's hard to remember dates for me.
Right. Well, I mean, it is true that Bob and Bert worked with him later. So I'm sure he was hanging around, probably hoping for a movie role or something, and eventually got one. So
Dennis. He was in Giant.
Yeah.
He's, wasn't he in with the Dean? I want to say Dean Stockwell. It's not Dean Stockwell. James Dean.
Yeah.
The movie.
Yeah. And
so
he did a lot of stuff like you did. Just various episodic things. It was like a Petticoat Junction and things like that. Prior to him being a star. So.
And he was a sweetheart, and he always had trouble with girls, so he would tell me all about, his girls that wouldn't, be his girlfriend or something. We were kids, we were just kids. Mm-hmm. And he was very, very sweet, but then he did Easy Rider, he directed Easy Rider. Mm-hmm. And he and I had a fight on that show. He was a very special person. He really was a very special person. And I knew him pretty well. Mm-hmm. But I think, that he was asking me to do something that was completely, or maybe I was just being a prima donna. I don't know. I hope not. I hope I'm never a prima donna. I don't deserve to be a prima donna. So. But Dennis was wonderful. He actually asked me to. Here's the shot. Okay, this is we're in the Mojave Desert. It's 110 degrees, and all of the dressing rooms, the trailers, everything broke down. There was nothing. One girl brought a crate of grapefruits that I think saved everybody's life, that we didn't get dehydrated.
Wow.
It was very, very hot. And so Dennis says, I want you to jump out of the truck onto the burning sand barefoot and then jump up into my arms.
Wow.
And I said, No.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to do that
it would
either.
have burned me to
Yeah,
death, you
yeah.
know? Can't you put something down there or something? No, he wanted the real thing, and but you know what? He got mad at me. We did patch things up later, though, because we became very good friends later.
That's good.
But I wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he got mad at me. So, you know, but the wonderful part of Easy Rider is I rode out to the location, to the Mojave every day with Laszlo Kovacs. And he was like he's a revered Academy Award winning cinematographer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I was very lucky there because we would chat and, you know, get to know each other and everything and drive out to the location. So there's all kinds of great things that happen, you know, even though I probably should have done what he said. That what I've learned, what I know now and what I learned later is the director is the boss on the set.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing and do not ever doubt that. So I learned that, and Dennis, if you're listening, I'm sorry. You know, he had a good idea, and I would have loved to have jumped up into his arms, but it didn't happen. So anyway, but there were other scenes in Easy Rider with Phil Spector, and then there's a whole long story about Phil Spector that I'll spare you of.
Okay.
But yeah, but.
Well, I really just had a few more Monkees questions, though, since we're kind of jumping ahead. Did you go with them on tour or anything, or just did the TV show? Okay. I didn't know if they brought you along,
No.
you know, to be an opening act or something crazy like that. You know, I don't know. You know.
No, I wish I could be an opening act, but I don't know how to do anything. You know, I don't know how I would open. I might be able to. One dream of mine that I've always had, but of course nobody's paid attention to me as per usual, is I've always wanted to get up on the stage and say, you know, ladies and gentlemen, the Monkees.
Yeah, well, that's what I was kind of
I would have
alluding
loved
to.
to
I
have
thought,
done that,
you know,
but-
because, you know, if you're the good luck charm, you'd be the one to introduce them and bring them out, you know.
Nobody else knew that I was the good luck charm, and they didn't believe me when I told them
Interesting.
I was
Okay.
the good luck charm.
So was the last time you worked with them on the movie Heads then? Was that the last?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I can't tell the difference whether it's Head or the Monkees because it was all the same people.
Right,
Same crew,
Yeah.
same people, same everything. So the differentiation there is up to you.
Well,
You
only
know?
because that was the last thing shot, at least originally back in the 60s, unless you count the 33 and a third special, which I don't think you're involved with, but...
Yeah, what is the 33 and a third thing?
Well, they did it after Head. There was a TV special. The Monkees signed like a 3 special deal, and unfortunately, the 33 and a third one, it's a really bizarre special. If you really want to check it out, it's on DVD and Blu-ray. You'd have to, you know, but. They aired it against the Academy Awards when the Academy Awards were still a thing, you know, unlike now, you know, and so it just got buried. Nobody paid attention to it, and NBC canceled the other 2 specials, and that's when Peter left originally, and then, you know, over the next couple of years, Mike left, and then it just kind of ended, you know, originally, you know, of course, and then they came back many times, you know, but... So your involvement with them probably ended then with the Head movie, you know, probably because that was really the last time, you know, Ray and Bob were, you know, actively involved with it at that time.
What about Easy Rider?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean for Monkees. I know I'm not talking about because of course Ray and Bob did 5 Easy Pieces and King of Marvin Gardens and a bunch of other films later. But were you involved in those productions too, or no?
Well, Bob and I were very good friends, and we used to talk on the phone a lot. Mm-hmm. We really used to talk on the phone for hours. Mm-hmm. And he told me once that I was an inspiration to 5 Easy Pieces. Huh. And I have no idea what he meant by that, because I don't think I've seen 5 Easy Pieces. But, Karen Black, of course, rest her soul, was wonderful and is a wonderful person and everything. But he did say that to me, and I have no idea. I wonder what we were talking about that another director told me that I was the inspiration for Turk 182, or
that sounds right, but I don't.
You know what?
I don't know how you'd be the inspiration for that, but I've heard that.
And that was Richard Sarafian. He directed Vanishing Point, and I was in that. He directed the first movie of the week. I was in that. Another director that really believed in me, Another director that was a very good friend of Michael McLean's. See, it's a small world out there.
Yes. I'm thinking about the 5 Easy Pieces. The famous scene in that, if you haven't seen the film, is Jack Nicholson ordering. He just wants a couple slices of bread, and they won't give it to him, and so he orders the chicken sandwiches, and he tells the lady, "Hold the chicken between your legs." Because he just wants the bread. He doesn't want a sandwich, but he orders a sandwich and tells her to hold everything, and then he says, "Hold the chicken between your legs." Anyway, as an aside for that, since I'm up in Oregon here, the place where they shot that scene is a Denny's that's up here where I live in Oregon,
wow.
Outside of Eugene, and it's like, wow, and I've actually gone to that Denny's just because I was kind of curious. There's no plaque or anything, so you just have to kind of guess. It might have been that table, but anyway, it's like, wow, yes. But there's been other movies shot up here, Animal House and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and things like that. So Oregon, and the Goonies and things like that. So Oregon gets a few things. So anyway.
Now, that's one person that I forgot to mention who was on the set hanging around all the time, and that was Jack.
So how was Jack?
They were very busy, and I had no idea what he was doing there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they were writing head. Mm-hmm. So that's why he was there. We went to lunch a few times, I think, and I remember he was always, very, very sweet. He really is a very nice person, regardless of what they say about him. He was just, really great and everything, but he was always so quiet. Mm-hmm. And after Easy Rider, I ran into him at a party in Bel Air at John Phillips's house. Mm-hmm. And he was dancing in the walkway when I came walking up. Just dancing in the walkway. And he looked at me and he went, "Valerie!" And just was so, and, grabbed me, hugged me, and, I just was elated. And it was because he finally had a movie that wasn't a B movie. Right. It was Easy Rider, that really put him on the map.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
He's a wonderful actor. He's a wonderful actor, a wonderful person. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I have not met anybody in this industry that is not a nice person. I think people go out of their way to be nice to everyone in this industry. Mm-hmm. Everyone, so. But Jack was there. Jack was there on the Monkees set.
very cool.
Dennis was there.
Yeah. One thing I noticed, another actor that appeared on a number of Monkees episodes, but not as many as you, is Monty Landis. But it doesn't seem like either of you were on the same episode at the same time, so you never met him, right?
Well, I met all of them, but, it wasn't like buddies that hang out and talk.
Yeah.
They came, they went.
Yeah. Okay. And so any of the other celebrities that you met over the years on Monkees and whatever, I mean, any memories of them, like Stan Freberg or, let's see, who else?
Stan Freberg. Stan Freberg is helping my friend Michael McLean out. Mm-hmm. He was casting a lot of TV shows and Cagney and Lacey, and this is later. And he called me up one day. He said, please come over to the studio and answer my phones for me. He said, Diana and I are we've got to go, talk. I think it was Cagney and Lacey. They were tying down, but somebody had to be there to answer the phones or the office looks closed. It was before cell phones, right? Mm-hmm. So I did, and Stan Freberg came in, and he said, so this was way later, because he said, Valerie Venet. He said, when you go home tonight, he said, you tell Nick this. He said, you tell him that I was in, and you tell him this. He said, ask him if he remembers the song, Please Don't Tease. And then he cracked up. And I thought that was so funny. So I came home and I told Nick.
Yeah.
And he was holding back laughter, but he never told me about it. So I'm in the dark. So if anybody out there is listening, please tell me about it.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be either, and
I have no idea. It was a private joke between these guys, apparently. They were very good friends, Stan and Nick.
Yeah. Which, Freberg and Nick both worked at Capitol Records for a number of years, so it's like, and that's your husband, if Nick Venet, I got to introduce him properly and say who he is. And, it's like, and like Ghosty said on his interview with you, it's like, it's just amazing, how many things he did. It's like, I'm just like reading this little Wikipedia entry, and it's like he discovered the Beach Boys, or he brought them to the label, or he didn't discover them, but and he was friends with Bruce Johnston, and he signed Bobby Darin and Glenn Campbell, and then he worked with everybody, and I'm sure he worked with Stan Freberg because he was on the label too, and it's just. Amazing.
20,000-year-old man.
Oh, yeah. Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner, So the question I have is, how did you meet him and how did you get married and everything? I mean, you don't really talk about that, much.
Well, most of us like to keep our private lives private.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
No, I don't elaborate a lot, but I met him at a session. A recording session. Mm-hmm. And everybody was saying, Nick Venet is coming, Nick Venet is coming, Nick Venet is coming. I thought, who is this Nick Venet? I came from the movie industry. I didn't know about I don't know why I was even at the recording studio, I think it was Capitol. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Nick Venet walked in, and everybody looked at him like he was a god. And then he looked at me, and I looked at him. And that's the beginning of everything. The rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's some sweet stories. He courted me, and I was actually staying at Michael McLean's house because of, I don't know why. Michael had a gigantic house, and I had, my own room, and it was right on the street. It was right next door to, believe it or not, Mayor Yorty's house. And all of a sudden, I was going to sleep, and I heard like something hitting the window. And I thought, what is this? And something else hit the window. And so I parted the curtains and I looked, and it was Nick. And I said, hi. And he said, are you alone? And I said, of course I'm alone. So I invited him in. We went into the kitchen, and, you know, I don't know, I made coffee. He loved coffee. And we sat and we talked, and, you know, it was definitely, and Michael McLean, you know, who was my everything, he said, if you don't marry him, I don't know. I'm going to disown you. That's what he said, because Michael was the music buff. You know, he was the casting director, and you know, he did Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and a lot of movies that you see him. He directed, he did, what was the one with John Huston, Man in the Wilderness? Richard Sarafian directed that one. So he was more of a movie person, but his soul was music. So when he met Nick Venet, he was just absolutely flabbergasted that I, you know, was dating Nick Venet. So, and we dated for about 6 months, and you know, then we were able to start a real relationship, and things went on. So that was it, you know. But I would say it was love at first sight.
That's
and I
cool.
still love him very, very much. I think that if he would have lived, he would have loved Facebook and, you know, social media. He never got to do any of that.
He kept working his entire life, right? Basically, I mean, until he got sick, I'm sure. But he never had really a career end, correct? You know, it's like he made it through the 80s and everything.
Yeah, he's a wonderful producer. There's no one like him. Someone once said to me, Nick Venet is a producer's producer. Yeah. And I thought that's right. You know, I didn't really know what a producer was. I didn't know who Nick Venet was. And my mother knew who he was.
Oh, that's funny.
My mother barely spoke English, but she worked at Capitol Records. She had a job of making sure that all the floors had coffee. You know, sometimes she was invited to bring, you know, food into the recording sessions, and she was very beautiful. She was only, 32 years old. And she, you know, so she was there when Nick was there. When I brought Nick home, she said, oh, he's the big shot. In her broken English, you know.
I'm surprised she didn't introduce you. He's the
big shot. You know, like he's the... And by the way, they got along like you can't believe. He used to just come over and visit her.
Wow.
And just hang out with her. He loved my mother.
That's great.
She loved him. Yeah. And she loved him. That's true. So, you brought me back almost to tears here.
Oh, I wasn't trying to. I just, you know, you have to kind of bring him up because, you know, he's such a large part of your life, as the Monkees were, as everything else I'm talking about. And, of course, that's the nature of interviews, you know, in a certain respect.
And of course we have to bring him up. He's the superstar.
Yeah.
He's the superstar.
Well, I mean, the best part is we can all remember him, and, you know, if you don't know who Nick Venet is, well, people can at least research him. And like Ghosty said, any music book worth its salt probably mentions him somewhere because, you know, he did so many things, so, you know, so.
Yes, he did. And, you know, there's one book that my friend Keith Putney talks about, where he somehow or other had Sam Cooke's, I think it was Sam Cooke, I get this wrong all the time, Harvey Kubernik, Harvey Kubernik, the author of the book. Harvey, I've got this all wrong. Sam Cooke's wallet was in Nick's jacket.
Whoa.
And he was questioned by the police, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
The night that he was murdered.
Wow.
Yeah, it talks about it in that book, and I don't have much of a memory now. The brain just goes, okay, we're all full here. This goes out, that goes out, and it never asks me if that's okay.
Well, that's enough clues I can research and figure out what it is. So,
but Harvey, and Harvey can tell you too.
Okay.
You can
All right.
call him up and ask him. He's very good friends with Gary Strobel.
Oh, okay.
So you can get a hold of him that way.
Okay.
And ask him about the truth of that story before you print it.
Right.
I get things. Maybe that's the Carol Channing coming out in me. I get things all backwards.
Now, as for yourself, apart from currently, because you said you're caring for your dog and everything like that, have you been basically acting off and on all these years, or did you take breaks to raise your child or anything like that?
Oh, my God, yes.
Okay.
I of course, when I met Nick,
yeah,
everything stopped.
Okay.
Because, no, not completely, though. I did do a few. See, there's my memory again. Very few things, though.
Yeah.
I did some children's Saturday morning things, and then, but not very much, because Nick was a very traditional person.
Mm-hmm.
He came from a traditional family.
Mm-hmm.
I came from a traditional family. In a traditional family, you stay home and take care of the children.
Yeah.
And he goes out to work. Mm-hmm. And I hope I don't offend anyone by that, but that's the way it was in those, well, not in those days, because it was beyond the 60s. The 60s were crazy. But neither one of us, were like, loving people.
Right.
We were very traditional in our beliefs, and I stayed home, and I wanted to stay home. I didn't want to leave. I didn't leave my baby, and I had kids. I had so many kids at my house. Everybody's kids were welcome at my house. When they came home from school, I had sandwiches for them. I fed them. I washed them. After they finger painted each other, my part of the house was like a nursery school practically. I loved children, and not anymore though, but then I did. I had easels and homemade Play-Doh and you name it. I was, one of my girlfriends said, you were super mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keith Putney is calling me on the other line.
Oh, wow.
I can't answer it, can I?
Okay. Well, we'll wrap this up pretty soon here. I'm almost done. So I guess after the kids were raised, you only had the one son, or did you have more?
We only had the one son, but we had also, Steve Douglas lived with us for a while, and his daughter, Pamela Douglas. Do you know who Steve Douglas is?
Refresh.
Steve Douglas is the original Wrecking Crew.
Oh, okay, that's right.
He played with Brian, with the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
I heard Brian. I didn't know that that's who it was. I didn't know any of these music people.
Yeah.
I didn't even know, coming back from lunch one day on the Monkees, I was with Michael, and we're driving in back from lunch, And there were these girls hanging on the fence at Columbia Studios. And as he drove by, they were screaming, And I looked at him, I said, "What's going on?" And he looked at me and he said, "I don't know." And he drove right in. I think he did know. But see, I was never a part of the music part of it. Unless, they were shooting something musical on the set.
Right. But
Yeah.
it is kind of interesting, that it was almost, from everything you're talking about, it's like total destiny. I mean, if your mom's working at Capitol, if the Monkees utilized the Wrecking Crew, as did the Beach Boys it was just, eventually you were going to meet,
And my brother-in-law, who is 85 years old, January 16th, he's in Lake Arrowhead now. He wrote a lot of Monkee songs. He's an incredible writer. He wrote a song in Hairspray, the movie. He wrote for the Monkees, Tomorrow Is Going to Be Another Day.
Oh, yeah.
He used to write, I think he used to write with either Tommy or Bobby before Voice and Heart. So there is a Monkees connection, and I think that I'm not sure about this because someone told me that Nick turned down the job that he was offered on the Monkees, which would be Donnie Kirshner's job. Donnie.
Yeah, Don Kirshner, yeah.
Yeah, Donnie Kirshner's job. Nick, but he couldn't because he was at Capitol and he couldn't handle what was the talent there, I am in touch with a producer now that worked under Nick. He's in Nashville. His name is John Gross, Groess. He's Lester Sill's nephew. Okay. His mother was Lester Sill's sister. So he contacted me through Facebook, and we talked, and he told me, he said, "Valerie, he couldn't handle, everything." He said, "My God," he said, "the Rolling Stones were staying at his house." He was the lines were around the block to see Nick Venet. And he would do like 2 or 3 albums, and then he would go on to another artist. But he would also say to different artists, here, do this one, to different producers under him that were working for him. So that, that's an interesting thing, I think. And I'm so glad to be talking to John Gross. I love him so much. John Gross and Abe Hawk, if you could give them a shout out here on this. 2 really wonderful people that knew Nick and loved him, along with me. But, so, and, you asked a little while ago how many episodes I was in. I don't know, but Andrew Sandoval once said, "Are you aware that you were in almost as many episodes as the boys themselves?" And I said, "No, I'm not aware of that."
Well, the funny thing
I
is,
don't know.
I think if memory serves, Mickey and Peter were the only ones that were in every episode because Davey had to leave one episode for, I forgot what the reason was, and then Mike had to have some surgery or something, and so he was out for a couple episodes. And, so Mickey and Peter are the only ones that were in every episode.
Right, yeah.
But they somehow covered it up, by, doing an extra romp or something. I don't know.
Well, they shot the series in a totally different way than you shoot, I call it the double check standard system, which is, the standard way, master, over the shoulder, extreme close up, master, the same thing over again. They didn't shoot the Monkees like that.
Right.
They went back and forth and inserted things and it, sort of like a music video.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were jarring the audience. They weren't comforting the audience.
Now, I don't know if you've probably been asked about this before, but I really don't know the answer, so I'll ask. The song they did called Valerie, is that in any way, shape, or form related to you, or is it just coincidence?
I have to tell you the story because if I just say, oh yeah, that song was, inspired by me or written about me, then I'm full of myself, and I never ever want to be that way.
Yeah. But
this is the way I learned it.
Okay.
After being absent from the Monkees for years and years, about 2008, 2009, I was invited to the Egyptian Theater where they were going to show 4 episodes of the Monkees along with commercials. And it was Barry Maguire actually emailed me and said, get a hold of this person. They're looking for you, So I did. And they left me a pass at the Egyptian Theater. I went in and we saw the shows. And then they invited us up for a Q&A. I went up, up on the stage or wherever we're sitting. Bobby Hart was sitting next to me. First, one of the first questions that came in was, is the song Valerie written about you? Mm-hmm. And I had no idea. This is, 2008 or 9, right? Right. So I had the microphone. And I said, but we're so lucky because here's Bobby Hart, who's sitting right next to me. He can tell you, So I handed him the mic. And I was waiting myself to find out, who this song was written about or, how it was constructed. And Bobby, we were sitting on these stools, and he kind of leaned forward and cocked his head and looked at me. And he went, of course it was. That's all I can say about the song. Now, I've heard all different kinds of people, saying different things about it. So I don't like to, what word am I looking for, Mark? I don't like to make myself, I'm just a small potato, okay? Yeah. And I don't know, but that's what Bobby said. And there was a whole audience full of people there. So,
Well, even if he just agreed to it spur of the moment a number of years later, I would still agree that, I do think of you when I hear the song. So, it's like, even if it was intentional or not, it's hard to...
And then another person who was with Tommy Boyce's sister said that Tommy Boyce told his sister that Bert Schneider said, give me a song with the name Valerie in it. So there's a couple of things floating around out there, and we'll never know.
Probably not. I mean,
but I think that what Bobby Hart said, I'll take that. The song is mine. Come on.
I will too. Okay.
Right.
So I guess on that note, we'll leave it a high note. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Call me back if you need any more.
Okay. But the final question will be, how do people get a hold of you if they want to ask you a question, or are you making any personal appearances, or anything, a book, or anything else coming up, or any plans at the present time, or anything like that?
Well, we've been under COVID for so many years, and I think things are just getting started. Yes, I used to do autograph shows, and I used to go to the conventions and be there.
Do you have like a website or anything, or is it just Facebook or
I don't have a website. I used to, but it's not there anymore. So I don't know what happened to it. Quicksand. Like that. It was great to talk to you. But please, call me back if we're missing things. I know I went back and forth on everything that probably confused you.
No, this is great. I mean, you answered a lot of things and, had some good stories, so I appreciate it very much. having you on the show.
And it's my pleasure.
And
the honor is mine.
Well, thank you. And and I also have to thank Charles Rosenay because he always gets me great guests. So, thank you, Charles, for getting me Valerie for the show.
Yes, thank you, Charles. Thank you for everything. He's a very good man. I love him. Okay. All right.
Well, that wraps it up for another Fun Ideas podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Valerie Kairys Venet, for being my special guest. Remember, you can always watch the video version of this episode on YouTube. Episode number 205 will be coming soon. If you would like to comment and or be a guest on this podcast, please drop me a line at funideas.mark@gmail.com. Become a Patreon of Mark Arnold and Fun Ideas Productions. If everyone listening just contributed $1 a month, that would be a tremendous help in continuing the production of my books and this podcast. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The opening and closing music for the Fun Ideas podcast is provided courtesy of Andrew the Slow Poisoner Goldfarb and is used with permission. This has been the Fun Ideas podcast. This is Mark Arnold speaking. This episode is copyright 2022. Fun Ideas Productions. Thank you and good night.
Monster.